there, everybody. Welcome back to the Planes, Trains, and Comic Books channel. My name's Matt, and today we're going to review New Think number 1. But before we get into that, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing, subscribing, commenting, it really helps me out and lets me know what you guys want to see more of. So, with that being said, let's get straight into it. All right, we got the cover here for New Think number 1. It is an AWA Upshot comic, and it is by Hurwitz, Deodato, and Lawridge. And we start off here on the first page with the Earth in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And we see humans are farming and building and having fun. But that's not all that's going on. We get a narration box that says that this time is when the screens arrive. And at first, those screens were just kind of cool playthings that were pretty clunky and harmless, but they slowly began to invade our world. And they went from only being at work to also being at home. And it says humans set up these special altars for these screens. And then eventually you get multiple screens in each household. But the screens were greedy and wanted more. They didn't just want your work time and your home time. They wanted all the time. So they had children. They miniaturized themselves and became able to be brought everywhere in every part of our lives. And they made sure that we were always paying attention to them with their constant alerts and upgrade notices and notifications. And then humans began to even try to integrate them into their own body. So at first it was just making robots with VR, but then humans begin to surgically enhance themselves with these machines. And that's where I'm going to stop it. I don't want to spoil anything else. So I'm not sure what the point of this comic is. It doesn't really go anywhere. While I was reading it, I mostly felt like they were just telling us the history of computers without any kind of extra story on top of it. It always felt like it was trying to build to some other crazy sci-fi plot, but then never quite got there. The closest that it gets is that ending scene that I just showed where the humans get modified. But even with that, I was thinking like it was going to show cyborgs and stuff or something, but it doesn't really show crazy body modifications or anything. So I was always kind of waiting for this comic to take off, and it never did. And I get the message of this. People can spend too much time on their phones or on the computers in general, and they're kind of forgetting about living their own life in the outside world. But this comic just spends the entire time trying to show us how we've been kind of enslaved by these screens, but they never really show us the screens being malicious or anything. If it was just the pictures in this book, you wouldn't know anything other than, oh, this is the history of computers, without the narration giving you an ominous feel, because they're saying these devices are something called screens, which sounds like a separate race or something, like an alien takeover. But then they never really go into that. I wish it would have done that and kind of went more into sci-fi and went a little bit more into either aliens or a virus or whatever the screens are, because as it was, this comic didn't really say anything other than what we already know as our history of computers in general. And it kind of just sounded like someone who's older, who doesn't like computers with these kids nowadays. It came off more like a lecture than it did like a cool story or something. The art in this by Mike Deodato Jr. was good, I thought. He's kind of got like a photorealistic style. So it works for this issue because he really captures that, like, this is what our day-to-day is in real life. But unfortunately, all I got to draw was a bunch of people looking at screens, and there wasn't really anything else cool sci-fi or anything that he could draw too much of. So yeah, I feel like this comic just completely missed the mark. It doesn't show any like malicious intent behind the phones or some like grander plan that's going to happen in the future. It just left me going like, okay, so screens are bad. And there was no story for me to really want to keep reading or moving forward. So yeah, I really didn't like this comic. I don't know why it exists. The only thing I can think is that because this is the first issue, this was just the setup for a big, grand sci-fi story that will get better on issue 2, hopefully, and move forward. So I'm going to give this book a 1. I really didn't like this book. I felt like I wasted my money. And like I said, maybe later on the story will progress, and this issue in context with the rest of the story will be better. But as it is just a single issue and a number 1 that's supposed to kick off this miniseries, I don't think it did its job in trying to make me interested in the story or wanting to read more. But that is just my opinion. So if you saw anything you like, definitely go pick that up at your local comic book store, and we will see y'all in the next one.